Okay, we're now back to Rotus Odiri, who has been giving us global business updates. Rotus, can you hear us clearly now from the studio?
All right, third time's a charm. It's funny, we're supposed to be talking about telecommunications later on and internet connectivity. So we we go. Cameraman is making me laugh. We go from oil prices, and I think we move to Xi Jinping, who is, of course, in Europe. Three-state tour. He started off, of course, in France, where he met with Emmanuel Macron and Ursula von der Leyen, president of the EU Commission. The trade, fair competition has been stressed while he was there. I think hopefully we should have a clip of Ursula von der Leyen speaking during his visit.
The world cannot absorb China's surplus production. I am convinced that if the competition is fair, we in Europe will have thriving, durable economies that will support more good jobs.
So that was, hopefully you can hear me. That was von der Leyen talking about the world not being able to, absorb the overcapacity of China production. You know, you heard, we talked about Janet Yellen while she was in Beijing saying the exact same thing. Xi Jinping now moves on. He goes to Serbia, is his next destination point with respect to his visit. We move on to UBS. I hope you can hear me because, So we move on to UBS now. UBS earnings in the first quarter of 2024. Remember the merger with Credit Suisse that was, ordered by the government of Switzerland. UBS handily beats its first quarter numbers that Wall Street was expecting. So revenues came in at $12.7 billion. Also, we had the merger cost, 45% growth for the top line revenues. If you look at the CS merger cost, is basically the Credit Suisse integration cost, the cost of integrating Credit Suisse. $1 billion is what we saw with respect to that first quarter. If you look at Q3, Q4 CS cost, that is the cost of integration, that was much lower. So you saw 1.75 billion and 2 billion respectively. So you can see the cost of the integration coming down. And then the net profit was really, really spectacular. I mean, you saw that net profits at 1.8 billion, a 70% climb. So pretty healthy there. We moved to Nigeria, and you should have seen social media yesterday, ablaze with this cyber security levy that is going to be put on electronic transactions 2 weeks from now. There was a circular that was released by the CBN. If you take a look, hopefully you have the summary in front of you. 0.5% charged on electronic transactions. You have the levy being paid by the originator of the transaction. You've also got the funds being remitted to the National Cybersecurity Fund, which is an account that is domiciled with the Central Bank of Nigeria, and again being backed by the Cybercrime Act of 2024. So of course, it's a lot of folks are saying, look, can we at this point sustain, more charges, more? In fact, I even understand that there's a telco levy. We have the Chief Financial Officer, Modupe Kadri of MTN Nigeria, on the Global Business Report at 11. We understand that the telco levy that was initially suspended by the president could be resurrected in order for Nigeria to get access to a loan from the World Bank. So left and right, you've got revenue drives and taxes rising all over the place. And then finally, streaming services have been celebrating Drake and Kendrick Lamar in their beef that we talked about the last time. It's escalated over the last few weeks. But streaming numbers have gone up. Kendrick's #1 on the US charts. And also, I don't know if we have MTN Nigeria's Q1 data and revenue numbers. data and voice, for the first quarter of this year. Every time things are trending online and people are tagging each other and people are rushing videos and tweeting, this is just adding to the revenues of the telcos. So you'll see data revenue exceeding voice revenue, climbing by 53% year on year. I think voice was like 14% in the 300 billion range. So, do keep that in mind for all the data consumers out there.
All right. Rotus? Okay, Rotus, thank you so much for that. So, yes, there's this cybersecurity 0.5% added to it. The question is, are we not burdening people with a lot of taxes? If we want to build a cybersecurity architecture, we could have built it before now, or we keep improving upon it. You have a line charge that goes for every transaction you make online, that goes to NIPS and all of that. Increasingly, what you're doing with all of this too much taxes, you're pushing people to peer-to-peer. Because now, at the same time, there's another story making the rounds that SEC is trying as much as possible to be able to remove Naira from every peer-to-peer trading platform. But people will look for alternative trading platforms because the taxes is so much. So with this 0.5% plus the close to about 50 Naira you pay before, God knows how much it's going to come down to. And when you look at it, the cybersecurity architecture is not even any better. You still have a lot of wiggle room. So I think they should focus on improving the architecture. They should have a consortium of people or forces or organizations that will come together increasing that rather than all of this line charge again, because it's just all forms of taxes that they're pulling out and it's not solving the problem with all the taxes. So this cybercrime levy, it's a stretch because in the end, we don't see any improvement in the cyber architecture.
All right, very quickly, President Xi Jinping's European tour, the first in 5 years, and really and truly, it's just to consolidate China's alliance with Europe, especially Eastern Europe, and of course, following the sanctions from the United States of America, and some people would say worsening trade relationships between the West in terms of America and China. They're looking to deepen their relationship in Europe, but it's not going to be so easy because at the end of the day, two main things on the topic in terms of conversations. Number one is the Russia-Ukrainian war and China's continuous support in terms of supply of technology and certain things and the likes to Russia. And of course, fair trade, as we saw the president of the European Commission there speak out about China subsidizing electric vehicles, thereby making it cheaper and then flooding the market and making competition almost non-existent, which we have talked about on this show, by the way. The big question, of course, is will this visit be profitable in terms of China holding back? If the U.S. hasn't succeeded by certain sanctions, will diplomatic conversations, by speaking to Europe, affect or perhaps have any implications or impact on EVs, fair trade, especially in EVs? One thing, though, is that for Emmanuel Macron, he's always moved away from United States stance. Well, not always, but at least he's shown that he's not always going to be in support of the U.S. policy on China. But he's quite eager to have China build an EV factory in France. And for me, I think that's quite interesting as a leader because at the end of the day, it's your country first, beyond conflicts between other countries. And it would be great to see what the outcome of this particular European tour by President Xi Jinping will be. The next stop is Serbia and Hungary. And Serbia is known to also support China as well. So not looking very good in terms of that conversation with China's support for Russia. But we'll see what the outcome of these meetings will be.
Ahead of his three-country trip to Europe on Sunday, President Xi Jinping wrote an opinion piece in Le Figaro, in which he tried to explain the purpose of his visit to Europe after 5 years. He talked about strategic convergence. And that's understandable because, there's very hefty trade partnership between China and the EU countries in terms of trade. Then he talked about opening new vistas. Okay, we've seen efforts in that regard on Sunday and Monday in France. And he talked about China's commitment to peace and stability. What exactly did we see in his meetings in France? The focus was on Ukraine, was on brandy, was on electric vehicles. with regard to Ukraine, he tried to persuade the French that, well, China is not involved in it. It's not directly involved in it, and that they are not necessarily taking any side. I don't know whether, from the view of geopolitics, whether they will believe him or not. On brandy, and this is linked to EVs too. China is the largest importer of French brandy. Now, with all the quibbling over subsidized Chinese electric vehicles in Europe, Xi Jinping, or the Chinese, they've been talking about imposing tariffs on French brandy. If they do that, it could affect the industry in France. Number 3 was about electric vehicles. But generally, I think what Xi Jinping has been able to achieve is to send strong signal to the United States. That's not at the table, but that is likely to be listening in on the conversation to see whether China would be able to gain, fresh grounds in Europe. He's going to Serbia and Hungary. These are traditional allies that rely on Chinese technology and imports. So, well, you go to Europe, you meet with the people fighting you. You also meet with your friends, and you send a signal to the United States. So all of this is still within the context of that rivalry between the U.S. and China. Now, you said oil prices have gone up. Yes, very volatile. Anytime there's crisis in the Middle East, that's a given. That's to be expected. But I wanted to talk about Warren Buffett, the Oracle of Omaha. Berkshire Hathaway, they had their annual general meeting on Saturday. And at that occasion, one major issue on the table was succession and the mortality of Warren Buffett. He said, I hope I'll be here next year. It will be 94 in August. But he has announced a successor and, put paid to speculations about what will happen, when he doesn't show up. After all, his partner, Charlie Munger, died. Now he's talking about his own mortality. And he has appointed Greg Abel, who has been managing the rail part of the business, the retail part of the business, and the energy part of the business. So there's some certainty, but we don't have a fuller picture yet because there's also still the management of public stock. But in terms of investment, he has said Greg Abel is the next man. So, but, no man can live forever. But it's good to see succession planning and he coming upfront about it. Thank you very much.